Hey, it's Teresa from Life Beyond Diabetes. And honestly, I'm never quite sure when this goes live, so hopefully I am live now and I'm not talking to nothing. So, anyway, Teresa from Life Beyond Diabetes. And I have to tell you, I'm not really generally very nervous when I go live on these things, but today I am. So, I'm asking in advance, please forgive me if I kind of go off the rails because I'm going to tell you a story today that I don't usually tell. Well, I tell it a lot, but I don't usually get very honest and raw about it because there's a superficial way to tell it, and then there's the honest and raw way to tell it. And I'm hoping that I can get down to the honest and raw way to tell it today. So this is the story about when I was diagnosed with diabetes and what it was like for me for the first few years after, because it wasn't easy. I don't think it's easy for anybody. And it's particularly hard, I think, for women who are younger than expected when we're diagnosed. And yeah, so I'm going to just dive right in. Um, so my story, this hair is driving me nuts. My story, when I was 34 years old, I was a full-time nursing student. I had a 4-year-old preschooler, and my husband, the preschooler, and I were living in a teeny tiny apartment because we had to move out of our house while we were waiting for our new house to be built because our house had sold faster than we expected it to, which was good news, but also bad news because we had to move into this little teeny apartment with a really big dog. Um, the dog and the preschooler could not be left alone in the same room together, so that was chaotic, just chaotic. Did I mention I was a full-time student at the time? So, and my husband was working long hours, and life was just crazy. And I had a routine doctor's appointment, my annual checkup. My doctor's office called me up and said there was something weird with my blood work. So they, thought it was probably just a mistake at the lab, but could I come back in and get it checked? And so I made that fit into my schedule, went back in. Medical assistant had me go into the room. I sat in the room, got my finger poked. At least I got to stay fully clothed. I didn't have any, paper gown to wear that day. And waited for a while for the doctor to come in. The doctor came into the room and she came in with a big smile on her face. And I thought, fantastic, this was just a mistake. Everything's fine. I'm going to be able to be on my way and get back to life and studying. And she hadn't even sat down when she said, well, you have diabetes. And I kind of thought, why are you smiling and so happy about that? And that's pretty much the last thing I remember until a few minutes later, she said, and now we need to get you skinny. And I thought, hang on, what? And now I wasn't any sort of skinny mini, but I also I thought, a pretty good job of taking care of my weight. I was kind of hovering right on the edge of normal weight and overweight. And not that anybody, and what I've since learned is that, it's not anybody's fault generally if they are overweight or obese and they have diabetes. It is significantly harder to maintain what is considered a healthy weight because of physiological things that are happening. But I had been living for years following Weight Watchers points and doing everything right, um, according to all the experts in my diet. And my doctor came in and told me I needed to get skinny. I was eating right already. And she said, you need to exercise. And I was exercising in the middle of my crazy life. I was still going to the gym all the time. I exercised as much as anybody I knew. And I thought, oh my God. And I told her that. And she said, okay, well, you just need to do more. You need to do better. And so I not only found out I had diabetes, but found out that my doctor didn't believe me. And she said, okay, so we just need to get you in for diabetes education. Somebody will give you a call and you can go home and work on that diet and exercise stuff. I thought, oh, okay. Shell shocked. I didn't cry until I got to the car. Got to the car, I cried and decided that the thing that I needed right then was a donut. So I swung by Krispy Kreme on my way home and I picked up a donut. because I thought, well, I'm doing everything right. Haven't had a donut in years. I may as well eat a donut because apparently doing everything right isn't helping me. I got diabetes. Well, I took a bite of the donut and I completely lost it. I started just sobbing. I threw the donut on the floor, didn't finish it. I had a bite and I thought, okay, well, I need to figure out how to do this because apparently I'm not doing it right enough. Um, I got home and my husband said, "So how was it?" I said, "Oh, it was okay. Nothing really that big a deal." And then I realized I was so ashamed that I had diabetes. I couldn't even tell my husband, my partner in life. I could not tell him that I had diabetes. And I was so embarrassed that I have diabetes because I have been told, society had told me that you don't get diabetes unless there's something wrong with you. And, we hear these messages all the time. You only get diabetes if you don't eat right and you don't exercise. And not only was I, apparently the message was that I wasn't eating right and I wasn't exercising. I was somebody who's only 35. This doesn't happen to somebody who's, actually, I wasn't even 35. I was 34. This doesn't happen to somebody who's who's not even 35 yet. This is supposed to happen to people who are like 70. What was wrong with me? What had I done to deserve this? What was wrong with me? And so for weeks, I didn't tell anybody about it. And I was a nursing student. I was supposed to know better than this. I mean, I still feel the shame of that time. It was so horrible. So finally, about a month later, I got into the diabetes education, and I have to credit the nurses and the dietitians at the diabetes education. They were really excellent at saying, "This isn't your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve this." But they did tell me that I needed to be doing better, even though I was already doing the things that they were telling me to do. I was living this healthy lifestyle that they were telling me that I needed to be living. And I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. Now, of course, ultimately, I did tell my husband. It took me a week or two before I told my husband what was going on. And then it was many years before I told many of my friends what was going on. Most of my fellow nursing students never knew that I had diabetes. In fact, a lot of it wasn't until probably a year or two that I even told work colleagues that I had diabetes. Um, and it took years of going in and out of doctors' offices and trying various doctors to find treatments that worked. And actually, no, let me take that back. None of the treatments actually did anything other than kind of put band-aids on what was going on. I could not figure out why I was always doing the things that I was supposed to do, but it seemed like none of them were actually making me better. And nobody was really taking the time to explain to me what was happening. And I was a healthcare professional. I was like, I should be able to get more information than this. So I was reading all the books that I could. Sometimes I would get things under control. And, I was spending a lot of my time trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to be a wife and mom and managing the family. Eventually, I became a nurse, full-time nurse, working all the time, trying to keep it all together, trying to do the best I can to stay healthy. It got to the point where I was just kind of barely paying attention to my diabetes, kind of coasting along. And really, I did that for about 10 years, where I kind of took care of my disease, but didn't really know how to take care of my disease because nobody was really telling me how to take care of my disease. And I had gotten to the end of the point where I didn't know how to find out more information about it. Um, I became a nurse practitioner, still following the American Diabetes Association guidelines, the typical guidelines, and still kind of feeling like I was just putting a band-aid on the diabetes all the time. Eventually, I'm it was through a weird series of events, I ended up with a job in obesity medicine. And I thought that obesity medicine was about helping people lose weight and fit into their bikinis. And I wasn't really interested in that, but that was the job that I ended up with. And as soon as I started working in obesity medicine, I realized that no, that is not what obesity medicine is about. Obesity medicine is about understanding the physiology behind why people gain weight and what's happening chemically in the body. And suddenly I understood why all the stuff that I'd been told about my diabetes wasn't fixing my blood sugars and wasn't fixing my diabetes and wasn't helping me get any healthier. I understood that the medicines that I was taking were band-aids and weren't helping me get any better. And it'd been 10 years that I'd had diabetes and I wasn't getting any better. And diabetes is a progressive disease. I don't believe it's a disease that can be cured. Believe it is a disease that can be put into remission, but it's always going to be there. And this is still after studying it extensively from an obesity medicine perspective, where we do believe that it can be stopped, but not um, completely cured. Um, and I will say, I'm a little bit angry that I wasted 10 years doing that, but I don't think that other people need to waste 10 years doing that. So that's why I'm here. I want to help anybody else who has questions. I want to answer any questions that anybody else has so that we can not waste 10 years of your life, help you understand so you can take the information back to your doctors or your medical providers, get you on the right path, help you figure out what works for you for eating, help you figure out how to live a practical life, help you figure out how to talk to your family and friends, because really that's part of it. And realizing there's nothing to be ashamed about. You didn't do anything to deserve this. There's many people, and I think of this all the time. I belong to a dinner club. We go out to eat a lot, and I eat better than a lot of the people that I go out to eat with. And they are skinny minis, looking healthy as all get out. And they don't have diabetes and they eat like crap. I did not win the genetic lottery, they did. So, this is not my fault. It's not your fault. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And it looks like I only have, I think, Jill, and there's somebody else here, but I don't know who that is. Hi, Jill, are you still here? And yes. Oh, I know, it's so hard to tell your husband. Um, and I will say, until I opened my own practice and started saying to the world that I have diabetes, most of my friends did not know that I have diabetes. And I want to say probably one of my colleagues knew. So and I was diagnosed over 15 years ago. So that's pretty high. I'm waving hi to Jill. Um, so anyway, that's it. Do you have any questions, Jill, that I can answer today? And this is going to be still posted for anybody in the future. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did learn in obesity medicine that I wish I'd known 15 years ago that I know now. Also, some of the things that I accidentally stumbled upon. It was so interesting. I read a book that I stumbled upon one of the answers accidentally, and I got my blood sugars under excellent control. My A1C came down, and my doctor said, "Oh, you got to stop that because your A1C is too low." And um, I can't believe I just forgot that until right now. And I can't believe that my doctor told me that I got my A1C too low, and it wasn't okay for somebody with diabetes to get their A1C that low, even though I wasn't taking any medicine. So that's backwards thinking. So tomorrow I will be back and we're going to talk about, I wrote it down here, some of the things, I'll be talking about some of the things I have learned about diabetes since I stopped listening to the diabetes specialists. So um, I'm doing a lot better. I am a diabetes specialist, but I don't listen to the diabetes specialists. When you say remission, does that mean control without medication, just diet and exercise? Yes. Um, Particularly when you are early in a diabetes diagnosis, it is significantly easier to get into remission. And there are people out there. There are people actually that I greatly respect, who say that they offer a cure for diabetes, and I just believe that what they are calling a cure is actually remission. Because if you stop doing those things, your diabetes is still there. The physiological changes have already happened in your body. The genetic predisposition is already there. You probably, by the time you're diagnosed with diabetes, there are already pancreatic changes that have happened. So you cannot completely get rid of the diabetes, but you can, again, for people who are early in following diagnosis, you can, for a lot of people, get it into remission to look disease free as long as you're following diet and exercise, and in ways that for a lot of people are sustainable, in ways that I eat. Now I will tell you that I eat and exercise in ways that for a lot of people would be in complete remission. Now, had I been doing that from the time that I was diagnosed, maybe I would not have advanced disease. I now take insulin. So that's not an option for me. I can't, I'm beyond the point where I can put my disease into remission. I don't make insulin anymore. So, my disease is too far advanced for that. However, for somebody who is not insulin dependent, it's likely that you could put your disease into remission. So, um, anyway, if that's it, I will see you all tomorrow, and we'll talk about other things like how you can put your disease into remission. Bye for now.